Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
The explosive job, I suppose it's very popular these days, it seems.
Catching on.
What, it is catching on, don't you think? What with these letter bombs that's going about? A bloke in Crewe got a French letter bomb the other week. It can be bloody nasty, of course. And then, I suppose, I was at some lady's evening the other week, and I must have pulled my gelignite down. I must have been holding it somehow like this, with the four fingers over the top. And somebody said, what's that he's got in his hand, Agatha? Well, it's only an 8-inch stick of gelignite, not wishing to brag, of course. And it looks, oh, Christ, we nearly blew ourselves up. Look, they, submarine blasting gelatin, those have brought, is 4 times stronger than that. There's 90% pure nitroglycerin in that. But to detonate it, it's quite inert until you get the electric type detonator and stuff this in one end. And now you've seen John Wayne jump off his nag and run up the side of a mountain, and then he'll run down again, and there's a bloody big exploder has appeared in the middle of the trail, and he gnashes his teeth and pushes it down like this. Actually, you can push them down with 2 bloody fingers. It's only like a little magneto in them. And it causes the electric detonator to ignite the fuse head in here and detonate the explosive. And the mountain disappears. It doesn't show you all the bloody graph that goes on putting the shit underneath there. But these are useful little things. Everybody should have one, I think. I'm talking to the married men now, of course. If you're having a bit of trouble at home, wire this up to the electric blanket. Chuck the leg across and switch on. And I'll guarantee you'll touch bottom. It's the only time you will. But they are useful little things. There is other ways of doing it. But I meant detonating the explosive and with a bit of blue sump fuse and with what we call a plain azide detonator. And I'll circle one out of the bloody magic bag in a minute if I can find it. Now, instead of using the electrical type exploder, we've got to light the fuse, which is obvious, and the fuse burns down and detonates the filling in the detonator. And I was explaining this to some of the chaps. And we had one on the back, and at the back there, and he said, well, how do you go on underwater? Well, of course, you get bloody wet, don't you? He said, I mean the fuse. I said, oh, the fuse. I said, well, this fuse will burn in 90 fathoms of water. He said, how do you know? He must have thought I'd been down there to have a look. Always reckon if you're going to act like a twat, wear a funny hat. So he said, I said, we made, and one job I was working on, we made exhaustive tests. We had a bloke on there who had the capacity for 22.5 pints of beer in his gut. So we loaded him up, lit the fuse, and got him to piss on it. And he couldn't put it out. What's more, he didn't even rot the fuse. So from that, we assumed it would burn in 90 fathoms of water, which I think is a fair enough test. Some people have trouble with explosives. Take the Germans in the last war, for instance. They had a bag full of this, stuffed it under the table, and Italy was only standing the other side and missed the swine at that rate. I thought, by Christ, they're going to lose. Anyway, I did hear tell not very long ago of 3 of the ICI scientists, and they were making some tests, as they called it anyway, on a tarn down in Wales with a river just before it ran into the sea. They were taking 8-ounce sticks of gelignite and putting a detonator on the end of the fuse and stuffing these in and lighting the fuse and tossing these in the river. Now, the idea being there was about 6 foot of clear water, and the column of water thrown up maybe about 15 foot with the gelignite, it might be 25 or 30 foot with the submarine blasting gelatin. And it said their excuse was it gave them some idea of the different strengths of the different types of explosive. It was a nice day. There was 3 of them there. I suppose they got bugger all of this. Come along, chaps. Let's go and toss a few in the river. Anyway, they didn't notice the local sportsman walking across these water meadows behind them. Shotgun over the arm, black Labrador dog, and the dog was getting excited because it heard the pops and bangs that they were making. And he hadn't retrieved any game, and it must have been thinking, Christ, he must be awful shot, see? Until he approached behind him and he saw one of these clowns throw one in, and there's a splash. And the dog thought they must have shot something at last. A duck, it's over what? So it's in, and it's out again. Now, when you get a black lab retrieving 8 ounces of jelly, and the fuse is burning down, and when they deliver it to hand, which is about there, approximately 9 inches from your knackers, which is a nasty place to receive 8 ounces of jelly night with a bloody fuse burning down. It would definitely do you a mischief. And nobody wanted to know. One's trying to hide behind one and the other behind the other. And in the end, they're trying to crawl up the back of each other's jacket to no effect. And then they took the obvious course. They took to flight, showering stones at the poor animal, shouting, "Go away," or something like that anyway. It sounded more like a Russian word to finish with "off." And the dog didn't understand the language because it had been brought up at good class kennels. And the outcome of it was it cost the ICI 50 quid for a new dog. One of the tragedies you get in life. On a Saturday night, 2 things usually happens at our house. It used to be 3. But now, either the telly breaks down, or the bobbies will ring up, and it's usually about 10 o'clock, and they'll say, "We have found some explosive. Will you come, we'll send the car round, and will you go with the bobby and collect it?" Now, it never happens on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday night, because they know bloody well I'll probably be out, but I'm never out on a Saturday night. And the phone goes about 10 o'clock. And they come round the other Saturday night, "We found some explosive." I said, "Where is it?" He said, "Over at Northwich, near Northwich it was." And we get there, there's a gable-ended house, and there's a bit of a flat part on the side with the 2 green doors, coal house and shit house. And I said to him, "Where is it?" He said, "It's in there." I said, "What's that, the coal house or the shit house?" He said, "The coal house." I said, "Well, it'll be dark. It's 10:30 now, you see. It'll be a bit dark in there. Shine your bloody light in." So he shot his light in, and lying on the top of the coal is a stick of gelignite like that there. No paper on it. I thought it's one that's got blown about. They've been shifting a bit of rock in the mine or something, and it's got shoveled up with the coal. So I pick it up and bring it out, and as I walk out with it, I thought, that's funny. One end seems softer than the other. And just as I was thinking to myself, I heard a deep-throated woof, woof in the house, you see. I said, "What sort of a dog have they got?" He said, "It's one of them Great Danes, it's like a bloody donkey." And I was feeling this stuff around. If you lift up a Great Dane's tail and look at the diameter of that. Taking into consideration also the length of its back, because a dog only has 1 pudding. It could pass 2 of those in bloody tandem. And you stood there, and you know you've got a handful of dog shit. And for some reason, you don't like to let it go. You wouldn't want to go and do with your bloody hand after, you know. And you turn that constable into a bloody sergeant. He said, I said, "Get that woman out the house, get her out." Anyway, she come out. I said, "Madam, do 1 or 2 things. Either keep that bloody coal house door shut, or stop feeding that dog so much win a lot. You're frightening these lads to death. 10 mile there, 10 mile back on a Saturday night at 10:30, and you finish up with a handful of dog shit." You can't win in this game. But I suppose you may wonder, now you know all about explosives, how I come to be in the business in the first place. And When I went back at the end of the war, I went back to Rolls-Royce from a job back, and there was some nebulous prat sitting behind the desk who said, "The war's over, you know." Some bugger had told him, you see. I said, "I know, you don't think I bought this bloody suit, do you?" Mine was like a dirty brown colour with a bright yellow overcheck. Arms on it like a Chinese mandarin, but very tight round the crotch. You could fly in it, but by Christ you don't walk in it. Just to make your knackers squeak like new shoes. And then he said, "We're cutting down, you know." It didn't exactly make me feel wanted. So I thought, well, bugger you, Jack, I'll have to start a job of my own. And I started blowing up things, blowing up the odd tree stump here and there and whatnot, because the blasting business is rather difficult to get off the ground, you know. And having a bit of success at it, but not a lot. I went on and doing a bit more, and then I started blowing up rock, and then a few chimney stacks. I drove 111 in the last 2 years. One of the buggers here at Crossfield. But I noticed over the last 25 years, while I've been blowing things up, I've managed to make a bloody living at it, while Rolls-Royce has gone steadily bloody bankrupt. I'm really glad I didn't join. We daren't tell that one till after they went public the other week. But this is what the job. The job you've really got to look out for is the government job. That is the worst kind. If you're ever tempted to work for the government, bloody watch it. Because you'll always get some supercilious twat from Whitehall. And he'll come up. "Oh, so you're the expert, are you?" And you know the way they say it, you know what they mean. X is something that has been, and spurt is a drip under pressure. That's what he really means, you see. You can remember that Torrey Canyon business. Now then, there's a boat struck a rock, piddling oil all over our sea and polluting the bloody coast. So what they do, the great deep-thinking ones make a foam rubber collar to put round it. Have you ever heard such a load of cock in your life? Within 10 minutes, the sea had just flown it away. 25,000 quid's worth down the drain. That's why these settees are in short supply, I think. Anyway. And after that, the Navy said, "We'll shift it, we'll bomb it." So they bombed it for 2 days, dropped 100 1,000-pound bombs and hit the bugger twice. And a bloke approached me from one of the shit-stirring papers and said, "Can you do anything about it?" I said, "Yes, you have to vaporize oil before you can burn it, put plenty of the stuff in the bloody tanks, get some thermite and magnesium on the deck, and touch the bloody lot off, and you go, boom! You see, you get a big shower of oil up in the air, ignited with the thermite and magnesium, you get a huge gout of flame." I said, "Not only does it burn the oil, it smashes the boat up and shifts the rock it's bloody sitting on." All at one fell swoop. He said, "Will you come on the box and tell them?" I said, "Aye, of course, when you go in the bloody green room at the back, you're met with it. You know, commander and all this lot that have been bombing the bugger, you see." And I said, "There's one thing about it." I said, "In the next war, I'm going to stand slap bang in the target area." I said, after all, it was stuck on a bloody rock and it wasn't even firing back, you know. So it's a case of out, bugger him off, get shut of the peasant, you know. We'll do it our way. But you'll get this sort of thing will happen, and then you'll get the man will say, "We want you in Jib on Thursday." This is Tuesday night. Now, we've got a job for you, you see. And you can always bet, if it's a bad job, they always send a taxi for you. I don't know whether it's to make sure they get you to the airport, or if anything, if you do meet with a bit of an accident, they don't like your car standing on the car park there for 2 years. Because people might start to ask what become of the poor swine anyway, and they'd never tell you. So this happened not very long ago. We want you in Jib on Thursday, so the bloody taxi comes. So you gather your kids round you, pat them on the head and kiss the dog, and and they send you up there on Thursday morning, and vroom, you're away. And I thought, Christ, and then it lands at London. Then you wait 7.5 hours for another aeroplane. You thought, somebody's pulling my bloody scotch here. And you finally get there at 10 o'clock at night, and you're met by two of the faceless wonders. Come with us, you see. Oh, you go up to this hotel, and I said, when am I doing the job? Tomorrow. He said, it might be tomorrow or the next day. He didn't even know when it was. So I was there Friday, Saturday and Sunday and stoned out of my tiny little mind. And I was having a bloody whale of a time. I got used to living there, you see. I didn't really want to go anywhere after that. And on Monday, one of these is scanning the harbour there, and he said, it's arrived, come with me. And we go down and get on this little bumboat, and they put me explosive on it. I went, there's a ship at anchor in the middle of the bay there. And when we get there, we're on this little boat about 2'6" long. I was looking up at this boat, and somebody chucks one of those rope ladders down with those wooden slats on. I thought, Christ, have I got to go up that? And the other one's leaning over the rail with his briefcase with the tassels on, real land doesn't know, and we've seen the lions. And he's there, and he's that far back he can't understand the bugger anyway, but you finally get the gist of it. Is that you, Bates? Is that you? Who the bloody hell did you think he was? It's cost him a lot of money to get, is that you? You got to say something. And he couldn't really mention the weather because it was steaming bloody hot. So you get up, he said, come aboard, if you can get, come aboard and defy you to get there. So you get up. I said, where's the job? He said, that's your job there. And there in the bloody sharp end of the well of this boat, there's 4 bloody big tanks, 36 foot long and 12 foot in diameter. I said, he said, we've got to blow those up. I said, what, on the boat? No, bloody tired. No. On the boat. No sense of humour at all. No. And he goes, we swing them overboard with that large derrick crane on there. And we want you to attach explosives so they'll explode in the sea at the stern of the ship. I said, oh, I can see what you're going to do. We're polluting the sea again, are we? Well, not really. No. Lying swine. Anyway, so you go off, and the steam on bloody night, and midday next day you heave to in 1,000 fathoms of water, supposed to be off the coast of Morocco, and it's as hot as hell. Now, July isn't really a good time to attach explosives to steel. Not off the coast of Morocco. Because if you'd have thrown an egg at those tanks, you'd have got instant scrambled egg. And you put the big blocks of explosive on it, goes tss, and you tie them round with this stuff, and another one goes tss, like that there, and you get this detonating cord on. I thought, no bloody detonators near this, till the bugger's ready to drop in the sea. And he's looking at me, and I'm standing there with my desert wellies on and my shorts, And he said, looks bloody dangerous to me, babe. Babe? Me? Looks bloody dangerous to me. I said, it is bloody dangerous. He said, well, what will happen if it goes off? Well, you don't like saying it'll blow us to shit, It sounds so uncouth, doesn't it? I said, well, we won't feel it, that's for sure. I said, and we shall be the first to go. I said, but now I've told you my secret, you tell me yours. I said, what's in those bloody tanks? Oh, frightful. Some bloody gubbins that's stewed up, you see. Type of gas, paralyzes the nerves, shrivels the extremities. I am standing there with a pair of khaki shorts on. I said, you will excuse me, sir. I was back in that cabin shit hot, I'll tell you. 4 sets of Y fronts and a pair of Y... I thought, he's not shriveling my knackers with his bloody rubbish. If I get a whiff of that, they'd have to shoot me and cast me overboard. Anyway, we finally got the thing done, swung on, boom, and the master of the ship, you know, he say, we do job. It was obviously a foreign boat. And an extra bit of fuse just for his peace of mind. And after we'd done it, said, tonight we drink. I said, where? He said, first mate's cabin. I said, why first mate's cabin? He said, no mate shit to my cabin. That was the master. He was no bloody fool. Oh, and he got in the first mate's cabin. I'm sitting here, the master sat there, the first mate's there, and he's got his back to the porthole. And we get 25 bottles of Heineken lager apiece and an empty chair for our government friend. But he never appeared, you see. And we were getting stuck into these. You know, after we swallowed about 15, the first mate was flicking them over his shoulder, straight through the porthole without looking. And without touching the side. When I'd tried to score one or two double tops, there was glass and shit all over the place. And I could understand then when the master said we go in the first mate's cabin. Then he said, you drink whiskey? I said, I drink bloody anything. So we got a bottle of whiskey apiece and a bottle for him, and he still hadn't appeared. And then the master suddenly cottoned on and he said to me, where is government man? I said, I said, it's a funny thing, Johannes. I said, I am an English peasant. I said, he is an English gentleman. I don't think he will drink with us peasants. Ah, I understand, he said. We have them in Holland, just the bloody same. All right, he knew what it was, and he'd been looking on the map where we come from here in Cheshire. I said, where are you going now the job's done? He said, I dock at Preston Dock. He said, and when I go there, I go straight to Runcorn to see Big Nora. He said, I look at map. You know her? I said, get up, you bloody tool. Anyway, we're going to get we'll have a piss and a pint, and we'll carry on again in a minute, if you don't mind, chaps. Well, we'll make another start now, lads. Not very long ago, I had to knock out the outlet pipe for the Students' Union at Liverpool. That meant we'd got to sink a bloody shaft. It was under the outlet pipe for the swimming bath. And we had got to go down 28 feet, you know, Liverpool's on bloody sandstone, then tunnel 34 foot under the road. And when you've gone down this bloody shaft and you start going under the road, and you've been working away there about 10 days or a fortnight, he appears, the consultant engineer. Now he's going to come and tell us how to bloody do it. The job's 3 parts done. Now you'll notice these chaps are not going to get dirty. So we are down in your little tunnel in under the road, and the voice is echoing down the shaft, hey, you there! Hey, you there! So what you do, you crawl up the tunnel, lift your leg up, look up the shaft there, and shout your fly holes open. Doesn't do your case any good, but it gets it off your chest. You're using far too much explosive. Well, you've got to give it a bit of a stick in a 5-foot heading if you're drilling it in 4 foot to get it out. Give it a bit of a jerk. He said, what are you using? I said, 8 ounces of gelignite. He said, it's far too much. I said, well, do you mind if I use one of these smaller sticks? Oh, he said, how much is that? I said, 4 ounces. He said, well, use that then. That'll be all right. So that was a submarine blasting gelatin. That's 4 times stronger than gelignite. So I thought, well, that's all right. So we thumped that bugger. And on the second day, somebody said, you're swinging me chandelier in the next street. He got the job done a lot quicker. Anyway, getting towards the end of the job, you're just breaking into the main sewer. Those sewers are 6 foot high and they're bloody egg-shaped. And they'd got the health department down to take some pictures. And I said, you're just in time, lads. Bloke had got the camera all to take the pictures, and I just drill in it, and the drill went through. There's only 3 foot 6 to go. I said, so the next blow, and I'm into the main sewer. He said, well, for Christ's sake, don't blow it while we're here. I said, why not? He said, do you realise where that sewer comes from? I said, no, I haven't got a clue. He said, well, that comes from a district we call Abercrombie. And there's too many Taj Mahal restaurants up there. And I don't like that bloody second-hand curry coming past me, he said. So So I had to wait till they burst off before I could blow it up. Always holding the job up. And one day they said, we want a reservoir at Barlaston, the other side of Newcastle. He said, it's very deep at one end, tapering up and out at the other, hold 1 million gallon of water. He said, so when you blow the lock, you'll have to run up a slope to get out of it. Make it difficult for you. And somebody shoves a tin of grease on it just to make it, you know. So you're blowing this, like, and I've been drilling these and trying to light about 60, and then the lumps of rock were chasing me out the bloody hole. So by dinner time, I'd had a bit of a sweat on, and I thought, well, bugger this, I could do with a cup of tea. Well, I'm not very far from Newcastle under Lyme, so I went and at that time I'd got the old Elvis. It was after the van. The Elvis was what they call an open tourer. I don't know if you ever saw him. 1928 it was. I did 96,000 miles in the bugger, 5.5 to 1. Lift to the bloody starting handle, it blump, 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 and it blump, blump all day. Wasn't terrifically fast, but once you got the flywheel turning, nothing could stop the bugger. and somebody had cut the beetle back off it and put a square back on with what is called nowadays a tonneau cover. That's what the chaps call them in the club. A tonneau cover. Mine was a piece of oilcloth with bloody with breast studs round it. That's what they are now, but they call them tonneau covers, you see. If you're with it, you know. Mine was a piece of oilcloth, and I used to put my explosive in the back. And I've been working up at this place, so I come into Newcastle, and there's a bit of a cul-de-sac and a cafe. So I parked the bugger by the side of the curb, went in, got me a cup of tea and a wad. And when I come out, there was a police inspector, a sergeant, and a constable. Two of them were looking at it, and the constable who got out the wind handle and he was turning it round. And I think he believed he was winding up the rubber band, or it was a clockwork model. I said, what's the matter, chaps? You've got to appear innocent. I had an idea what happened. One of my press studs wasn't working properly, and the wind had got under it and lifted the bugger up. And he'd been walking past and seen in the back a box of Gelignite. Back up to the police station, and he got the higher echelon had come down, and they all had a look at it. And they said, you can't leave this on the street, you know. Come up to the police station. So I had to go to the bloody police station with them, went in the old motor, followed them up, and had to make a statement, you see. So when I got back to Crewe, I went to see my solicitor. I call him my solicitor. Everybody calls him my dentist, my doctor, my solicitor. He's my solicitor because he was at school with me, and he doesn't charge me anything. It's like my accountant. He's the same. Nice lad, really. Till I walk in. Only go in once a year, because he's behind his desk, composed, enjoying life. Then I walk in, and his face alters. And he'll say, don't the years go quick? I said, well, I've come here for you to do me books again. And then he'll say, what bloody books? You don't keep books. Then he lies on the rug and beats his hand up. Has a little session like that, and I give him a cigar, and he composes himself again. Don't the years go quick, swine. Anyway. So I said to my solicitor, I am in the shit. No use beating about the bush. And he said, what again? What have you done this time? I said, well, they were all accusing me of leaving explosive unattended on the street. They're all playing bloody elephant Newcastle there. Oh, he said, you'll get the summons, all right. He said, when you get it, you come up and see me. I said, I'll have to come to court with you. So I got the bloody summons, all right, and I went to see him. I said, there it is. He said, right, that's just such and such a date. We have to go to court. I'll come with you, he said. So we go up to Newcastle Police Court this morning. Remember, it was a nice day, and we get in the court. And he said to me, he said, now, don't forget, he said, I'll do all the talking. He said, I'll make the questions. All as you've got to do is say yes and no. Just say yes. He said, you'll know when to say yes. I said, at least I hope you do. And you'll know when to say no. That's all you've got to say. He said, Jenny. So anyway, they got me in the bloody dock there, and And they started off, and then he started, well, of course you wouldn't do such. No, but you would do so-and-so. Yes, and I was yesing and bloody knowing for 40 minutes. And no bugger was getting anywhere. And the sun was coming through the windows, and the magistrates were slowly going, you know. Well, on the way there, he said to me, look, he said, if we can get them laughing, you're all right. Pop a stick in your pocket. Bloody yes and no. And just then, the chairman and the magistrates jumped up, turned to me. I don't care what the solicitor says. I still consider this to be a most dangerous substance to be left on our streets. So I thought, this is me cue. He's talking to me. So I whipped the stick out of my pocket, broke it in two, wrapped it on the dock, and said, you don't call that dangerous, do you? By Christ, they all sat to attention. The court came alive. The superintendent jumped up and said, get him out the court! And as I'm going up the aisle, somebody shouted, £9! 9 bloody quid. I get to the back, and there's my solicitor leaning against one of the blokes, pissing himself a laughing. He said, you silly bugger. He said, I'd got him here, he said. 40 minutes I've struggled. He said, you've just cleared the court in 4 minutes flat. You can't win. Oh, dear, dear, dear. But, can you imagine, just prior to that harvest, of course, I acquired my van, which gave me a lot of range. And I used to go frigging about in that wonderful piece of machinery. Fantastic it was. And I was determined to halt at the halt sign at Market Drayton. I tried, sometimes a little short, sometimes a little over, but never on the bloody line. But he brakes were a right cock up on it. So one morning I snook up to it and stopped on it and peeped round the corner. Market Drayton's got a little square, little market town. And as I looked, there was 2 blokes standing on the edge of the curb. And one of them says, come here a minute. I thought they're lost. Now, to be lost south of Drayton in 1951 was dangerous. South of Cheswardine, it was sudden death. You finish up with a couple of arrows in the back. The natives were still making bangle out the tillywag wire then. So I went across the road, showing off a bit, crossing the hands. Well, the bloody steering wheel had to go round once before it did anything. And drew alongside the curb. And I always reckon if you're in 3'6" of it, you're near enough. And they stood and they looked at it in amazement. And one went round the front. And the other bugger went round the back somewhere. And the one round the front, he's looking at it and picking the wing up and shaking it. And he gets hold of the headlamp and he's turning it round. Don't unscrew it, it's wanting. I thought perhaps they're American tourists. Looking for souvenirs to take back home or something like that. Then he bent down and looked at it and said, put 'em on. Thought I bet the twat doesn't think they'll like. So I flicked my 15-amp switch. Then he put both hands round the book. Put 'em on! I thought, wait till that bit of wire warms itself up on blindless swine. What does he want with 6 volts and a rusty reflector and the bloody sun shining? So with that, I had to put the question, like, what's the bloody game? With that, he come from round the front and stood opposite my windowless window. And he come from round the back and stood alongside him, like Tweedledum and Tweedledee, and put their hands in the pockets and produced sticky little green card and said Transport Commission. Then they went over it. You'll have that done, you'll have that done, you'll have these done. Oh, you'll have those lights fixed. Oh, Christ, £15.10 to keep it on the road. Oh, there was nothing luxurious about it. But you may wonder how everything was loose and flapping. Well, it came about with getting the cards from his lordship saying come up at 9 o'clock in the forenoon to blow up the 3 stamps. I used to go there, and from his Stone Lodge entrance to his front door was 1.25 miles. And the potholes were anything from 1 foot to 2 foot deep, all the way there and all the way back. And he used to shake shit out of my van. Just getting to his front door and back. But the bloke that worked in the kitchen gardens used to save me the bits that dropped off it. A headlamp or the exhaust system one week. Sounded healthy, but it used to stink. If I only blew 4 tree stumps up for his lordship, by the time I got back to his Stone Lodge entrance, I was bloody losing. I used to go up there and up to the turning circle in front of the main doors. And on these turning circles, you've seen them with a puddle in the middle and an obelisk stuck up in the middle of that. Usually with the carved stone figures on the top, either a couple of nymphs copulating, or 3 of them playing with a dirty big snake. But his lordship's was different. His was surmounted by a large toadstool, with a little hobgoblin squat on the top of that, with an evil leer on its face. Could afford to have. Had a tool on it 2 foot 6 long. When you used to ring the front doorbell or pull the wire, whichever was your want, he used to piss something down your back. That was to teach the peasants to go round the bloody tradesmen. And it had been doing that since 1720. And I thought, if that filthy little piece pisses up my back again, I'll shove the shotgun in the back of the van and blow his bollocks off. I'll stop the evil little swine. And it was like lizard piss, it used to burn. I used to go there, trying to avoid his goblin, of course, and awaiting his lordship's pleasure. You sit there for a bit, and you hear the clong, clong, as the bloody big bolts were withdrawn from the heavy oak and iron-studded doors. Then the iron ring would doom in the door, and the door would creak open. You've got to be careful how you tell this story. Got a lot of Guinness, you could shit yourself. I did hear of a tragedy down in Whitehall when Carruthers was telling the chaps in the Liberal Club, not the Conservative Club, the Liberal Club. He said, when I was shooting tiger in India, he said, I was with my gun bearer and we came upon a clearing and there was a bloody great tiger crouched ready to spring. And all of a sudden it went, ah, like this. And I turned for my rifle and my gun bearer had flaked out right on top of my rifle and somebody said, by God, Carruthers, what did you do then? He said, I shit myself. I said, what, when you turned for your rifle? He said, no, just when I went, And his lordship would emerge, saying, morning, mate. All second names, of course. All second names. Morning, my lord. Pulling the forelock. You've got to know your place. And he'd say, we're going to blow things up, shall we? He only drove the bloody tractor. So he lummoxed £50 weight of explosive on the tractor, and he used to get on it, and I was clutching the back of the seat with 1 foot on the towing bar, while he went tear-housing all round his estate, going through all the puddles and cow shit he could find. No, it was sprayed all over me at the back. Just a bit of sport for the gentry. Saying, I'll have that blown up, and that one over there, and the old tree might as well go. After all, he liked to see things blown up. He got nothing else to do. And I was getting paid for it, so things were going on swimmingly, as they say in the Cheshire Life. And then he married his secretary. His wife died, you see. Rather tragic, I thought. He married this young woman of about 34 summers. And he was pushing 70. And she was as fit as a bloody tiger. Tall, hawk-nosed, raven-haired. Looked like a test pilot at a broomstick factory. She'd have made a mess. She'd have made a mess of any of us two here in here tonight. So would you. On cold roast pheasant every day and a bucket of oysters at weekend. I thought, by Christ, you'll kill him. Took him 2.5 years to go. And after he went to this one, about 9 months, the gist of his card's altered. The next one I got was meeting at the breakfast room window at 9 o'clock in the forenoon. I didn't know which of the breakfast room window. I'd never had my finnan with his lordship. They don't call it a bloody haddock, they call it a finnan. You dare swim backwards a bit more salty than ours are. I thought, God, all as I got was a bottle of beer, a meat butty, and a feel of the maid. That was only in blackcurrant time. It only came in season once a year. Anyway, now, how can I find out which is the breakfast room window? And I suddenly thought, around the corner of the east wing was heavily overgrown with ivy, and the butler used to get in a bit of an itch round there, having a smoke after he served breakfast. And for 2 years I've been sneaking up to the corner and putting my head down saying, "Gotcha!" And the green bee's apron just fly up over his head and at the end of his woodbine. And I think the other bit used to go down his bloody sleeve because he let out a scream. I thought I mustn't upset him or startle him this morning. I thought I'd give him a couple of, "Hello, hello, are you there?" And he came out of the ivy with a look of surprise on his face, as though I'd gone all queer, like a touch of the 4-speed walking sticks or whatever. And I thought I mustn't give the wrong impression here. I said, "Which is the breakfast room window?" He said, "The 5th one along from the main doors." And I looked along, and there on the lawn, under the 5th window, there was a stool. And just then I saw the window open. And it was shaking like this as the thing opened. And the leg came very shaky over the bloody sill, and he went out of a tip off the stool. And out through the window came his lordship. Now, those windows only about 1/10 of the weight of the big oak doors. If I crumbled to it, he'd been wed to 9 months of this young un. He could only just manage to open the bloody window. He'd no chance for the oak doors at all. You've heard of them going up with a blind. It was knackered then, you see. Like the bloke said that worked in the kitchen gardens. What a way to go. Mouthful of a belly full of brandy and a sore He said they can take me tomorrow. He was volunteering. He said, "If it's just my bloody luck to get run over with a tater wagon." Cheers, Dad.